Good morning, everybody. Got a good show for you today. Fill your cups. Let's do this. Let's get right into it. Folks, we're going to do the best we can today. Stick with us. Stick with us. We're going to do the best we can. Hurricane Beryl did a number on Texas, and Houston got hit really hard. And as you know, Republicans don't build infrastructure for tomorrow. They don't build infrastructure for what ifs. So our internet, which is already challenged in this state, is struggling. It's struggling. If you don't know the way the internet is built, it's designed to withstand an attack. It was designed by the military. Came out of a military project with military funding. And what it's designed to do is when one portion of the internet is attacked, it diverts traffic to other portions. Well, Houston was attacked by Hurricane Beryl. So all of their traffic is being forced out into the rest of the network, which is taxing our network here in Texas because, well, after 25 years of Republican rule, our network here in Texas can barely handle normal traffic, much less anything difficult. So please bear with us. I'm doing everything I can. I got the lights up as bright as I can. I got the camera turned down as far as I can. The audio, I can't do anything about. We've got some pretty high fidelity audio that's just going to just tax the system. So please, pretty please, stick with us. It's Greg Abbott's fault, not mine. And speaking of Greg Abbott and Hurricane Beryl, we're going to start there this morning. We're going to talk about Texas and Hurricane Beryl. We're going to talk about the GOP just dropped their platform, and we're going to go through that point by point. And then we've got a little something about Putin that's really freaking interesting. So stick with us. We're going to get it done. So yeah, a hurricane was coming, and Greg Abbott decided to go ahead and take his trip to Asia anyways. You know, we've talked about this before. It's good to be in government. It really is. It is really good to be in government. There are a lot of perks. There are a lot of perks to being in government. One of the biggest ones is travel. Because my governor is paralyzed, swims with whales. Greg Abbott is paralyzed from the waist down. A tree fell on him. So Greg Abbott decides to take his trip to Asia. He went to South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. Knowing a hurricane was coming, he didn't cancel it. He went on with his trip anyways, and there's a reason for that. And Ted Cruz was also not in the state while we were preparing for a hurricane. He was in California enjoying some whale watching. You know, that state, California, they all hate, and all the idiots on the internet keep telling me I need to pack my shit and go to. Yeah, that's where Ted Cruz was. He was out whale watching in California while Hurricane Beryl was bearing down on us. That is funny. That is funny. Theo, he probably thinks the tree was woke. It wasn't woke enough. So, anyways, we're going to do a shout out here. after we finish taking a look at Greg Abbott. So, yeah, we've talked about this before. It is really good to be in government. You get nice trips. And you know, I think you're like me. You don't really care. I mean, do you really? If they did their jobs, would you really care that old Abbott's in Japan eating Wagyu? No, you wouldn't. But they just don't do the damn job. They don't. In fact, they usually get in the way of doing the job. See, the reason Abbott's in Asia is because Joe Biden passed a little bill called the Chips and Science Act. And it has caused semiconductor manufacturers to move back to the United States in droves. There are 73 semiconductor factory or fabs being built, renovated, or expanded as we speak. The Republicans, of course, opposed it. Most of them voted against it, but it has been fabulously successful. So what's Greg Abbott doing? The most Republican thing ever. He is going to now take his little trip to Asia again when a hurricane is just kicking ass all over Texas. Take his little trip to Asia and come home, and then he's going to claim everything that happened as a result of the Chips and Science Act, he did. I mean, that's it. That is really it. That is why he is in Asia. He's not actually doing anything. It is so that they can take credit, just like they did for the infrastructure bill. Republicans all over the place voted against it, and then their local Sinclair, billionaire frat boy owned affiliate ran stories about all this great infrastructure that their Republican representatives were getting them when they voted against it. I love that you folks are so far ahead of the conversation all the time. I know I say it every show. You probably got to get tired of hearing it. But this is where we're going with this right now. Biden's trying to get FEMA money to Texas. So to wrap up the semiconductor stuff, I invite you to go hit your Google search engine, type new fabs being built, CHIP Act, and you'll see article after article after article after article about fabs or semiconductor factories being built all over the United States, New York, Idaho, Arizona, Texas, all over the place. These factories are being built or expanded because of investment from Joe Biden's CHIP Act. So now you have people like my governor who are taking trips to Asia to try to claim that they're responsible for it. That's what was more important than being here when a hurricane hit. Not exaggerating in the slightest. That's what was more important. Because, Greg Abbott dreams of being the vice president. I don't particularly think that's going to happen because he's paralyzed. And Donald Trump despises anybody that's physically challenged. So, yeah, I think he's barking up the wrong tree, but he's trying. And what happened here in Texas while he was, living the high life and eating the Wagyu and drinking expensive sake? Well, this was what was going on. I'm going to do a shout out to a local fast food chain. I want you to stick with me. But Waterburger are freaking heroes. They are freaking heroes. This is an article that just came out from Forbes. Here's why Texans are using the Waterburger app to track power outages. Yeah, that's 100% accurate. That is 100% accurate. And before we get into it, this is Waterburger. And I hate to tell you folks that live elsewhere, but the best fast food hamburger in the country is a Waterburger. It is. They've cracked the code on hamburgers. They really did. That is a quart-sized drink you see in here in the background. The lid is this big around. Okay? That hamburger is this big. That hamburger is this big. Folks, they've cracked the code. They figured out that, and there's no more meat on this hamburger than there is on anybody else's fast food hamburger. What they figured out is the ratio of each bite has to be right. So they made the hamburgers thinner and wider. And they're freaking fantastic. Fantastic. Shout out to Waterburger. If you ever get to Texas, people always ask me, Paul, why do you stay in Texas? Why do you stay in Texas? Ask the people in the chat about Waterburger. It's one of the reasons I'm here, my friend. And no disrespect In-N-Out. In-N-Out makes a great burger, but I'm telling you, until you've had a Waterburger, you can't compare. You just can't compare. Why am I raving about Waterburger? Again, this is why I'm raving about Waterburger. You have local news channels telling people to go to the Waterburger app to track power outages. Why aren't they going to the power company's outage map? It's down. It's not functioning. In the middle of a hurricane, CenterPoint Energy's outage map isn't working. And that's critically important. It is critically important. If you've never lived through a storm or an event, like we have here in Texas, where you're without power, knowing what areas has power is critically important. Because I want you to think about it. Gas stations, they don't have backup generators. And even if they did have backup generators, which they don't, the networks that they operate on are down. They can't process your payments. They would only be cash only, even if they had a backup generator. So they're not functioning. And I have to tell you, folks, like in the last snowpocalypse here, it got pretty rough. It really did. It got pretty rough. And I mean, I had a couple, you can ask Mrs. Texas Paul, I had two different incidences in gas station parking lots where I had to back a guy down because they were getting out of line. Grocery stores. Another thing, if a grocery store is not open, they're not going to ship product to it because they can't sell. So they divert the products to the stores that have power. Because not everybody is prepared. We should all prepare for storms. Not everybody's prepared enough. Nobody expects power to be down for, a week to 2 weeks. They've got a day or two worth of supplies. That's it. So you go to your outage map, you find out what's open and what's operating. Pretty simple, right? You'd think it's pretty important. But we have no regulation in the state of Texas at all. You know why CenterPoint Power's outage map is down? Not Beryl, not Hurricane Beryl. It went down, and this is their own statement. It went down back in May. It crashed back in May. We had, if you're a long time, steady viewer, you remember us talking about the derecho storms. A derecho it's a straight line windstorm. They blow as hard as a hurricane, but it's not a swirling storm like a hurricane. It's when you get a front that blows through, a series of cumulonimbus clouds build up along the front. Those clouds take warm, moist air circulating around the outside. And then as it cools, hail forms and the air cools, and hot air rises, cold air falls. The cold air falls down through the center of the cloud, creating a downburst. And when that downburst hits the bottom of the cloud, if you've got a topographical feature, a valley, anything like that contains the wind, it's like taking the spray nozzle of a air compressor and blowing it They're highly devastating. And we talked about this, that corn crops were devastated by the derecho storms that we had here. Because as you see here, they get knocked down and harvesters can't, you lose about 60% of your crop, 70% of your crop, because the harvesters can't harvest the corn that's laying down. That's when their website went down. Not during Beryl, not from the traffic of people just devastated by Hurricane Beryl. No, it went down months ago. And nobody in the government of Texas thought it might be important to have an outage map for people to refer to. And CenterPoint has no idea when it's going to be back up. Don't know, don't care. Why? We have no regulation in the state of Texas because for 25 years we've been run by Republicans. You know, Texas is the only state in the union, just a little factoid about how bad Republicans are. Texas is the only state in the union that doesn't require workers' compensation insurance. So yeah, I just want you to be aware. That's how bad it is here in Texas. We have Waterburger that has an app to track its stores. And I'll give you a picture of what the app looks like. I should have had this for you already. Hang tight. All over social media, people are referring people to the Waterburger app. And they're using it to track where power outages are because Waterburger is tracking where its stores are working and not working. You can see what areas have power and don't have power. I mean, the ludicrous, ridiculous nature of that thought that you have a fast food company that has no obligation to run this app. They do it voluntarily for their customers, is able to keep their app up and running. But CenterPoint Energy, which is part of our infrastructure, can't, doesn't, and won't because it costs money. They're not going to do it in the state of Texas, and no one in the state of Texas is going to make them. That is the environment here in Texas. Rich says Texas has some pretty serious weather not to have strong infrastructure. Amen, brother. Amen. It's limited here in Texas. It is. It's based here in Texas, but it's limited here in Texas. So yeah, my governor can't be bothered to be here in the state when a hurricane is coming because he wants to go to Asia to take credit for something that he had nothing to do with, the ultimate Republican maneuver, so that he can say later that he brought jobs here that he did not bring, that the Biden administration brought here. But it gets worse. They couldn't be bothered to contact FEMA. FEMA's been trying to get a hold of them. And Dan Patrick, the acting governor, the lieutenant governor that was acting governor, made a lot of state declarations of emergency. But they don't have the resources to back it up. It's like I said in the last show. The hurricane is going to tear through. They're going to talk crap about Joe Biden. But then they're going to come like little boy Oliver, sir, can you help me with my storm, please? They didn't even bother to do that. It was yesterday. Folks, 2 million people were without power in Houston. FEMA moved 500,000 meals, 800,000 liters of water, and 60 massive commercial-sized generators into place. And that's before you even talk about money that they have prepared to be released. My government couldn't even be bothered to ask for it. It wasn't until yesterday. And they tell on themselves. They lie. They call Joe Biden a liar, say this didn't happen. Well, the White House has call logs, buddy. We know they were trying to call you. But they claim, oh well, yeah, we were, declaring disasters and we were doing the job and we didn't. But then they tell on themselves. They said, oh, we were working with FEMA. We were doing it. This is a lie. Joe Biden lied. We were working with FEMA. But then they tell on themselves. Because if you go down to their statements and you listen to their statements out of their words, Dan Patrick added that the state officials needed to determine what our outstanding needs were before they could make an official request. Huh. Well, if you read the beginning of their statements, they said, oh no, we were working with them. We were telling them what we need. But then you turn around and say, well, we needed to know what we needed before we made the request. They're lying. They're lying. And folks, the reason this is so bad, this is not rocket science. At one point it was. I mean, figuring out disaster response can be complicated, but FEMA's really good at it. And they knew what they were going to need. They had the money moved into the accounts. They had the food, the water, the generators, and the personnel lined up. All you had to do was pick up the phone and say, will you please help us? And make an official request. And that frees up FEMA to do what FEMA does. And they couldn't do it because they're incompetent. They are incompetent. Francis Winaldi says, EOP only cares, GOP is what they meant there, I'm sure, only cares about one thing, their personal portfolios. They're a bunch of greedy bullies. GOP only cares about one thing, their personal portfolios. They're a bunch of greedy bullies. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. 100%. But yeah, I need you to keep the folks here in Houston on your minds. Beryl was not the worst hurricane we've ever seen, but it caused problems. There's a lot of flooding, a lot of homes that have been devastated. There's a lot of people that are still without power. It is 90 plus degrees outside with a heat index, topping 100. People need you to keep them in your thoughts. And going forward, folks, I want you to take a look at this picture in particular. This is not something a city can fix. It just isn't. It's a major highway interstate interchange. Houston has a massive flooding problem. Every hurricane devastates Houston. This is not something Houston can deal with themselves. This is not something the state can deal with. We need Democrats in charge of this state so that they know to go to the federal government, which Republicans never want to do because they hate government, because their billionaire frat boys tell them to never use government for anything. Why people elect people to run government that hate government, I will never understand. But the city of Houston needs a massive infrastructure project in and of itself. Ask our European friends about Rotterdam, about their coastal cities. Their federal governments understand their responsibilities. They understand they need to build dike systems. They need to build drainage systems, pump systems. Cities must be modernized. And this is not something the city can handle. And it is obviously something Republicans are unwilling and unable to do. We need to get rid of Republicans in our government. They cannot govern. They are idiots. We just throw a point out there. You had Marjorie Trader Green trying to seem smart, talking about the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and started listing people off because she doesn't understand or know history, and listed 8 people, 6 of which were not signers of the Declaration of Independence. They just weren't. It's just one thing after another, after another, after another with these people. So that's Texas. Let's move to the national scale. The GOP has put their platform out, and we're going to run through it point by point. But before we do, I want you to understand the 2025 project. I keep saying this. Please understand it. It doesn't start in January, on January 20th, 2025. That's when it ends. It's already underway, and they're doing it to their own people. I want you to see this video. E.T. Paul, is some of the flooding due to things the states have not done for? Yes. Houston is a massive city that constantly grows, constantly. They cannot manage these projects alone. They have to be partnerships. When you have millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of people living in a city, that cannot just be a city issue alone. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. It's just the way it has to work. If we're going to move our country forward, all of our cities are going to need rehabilitation and massive projects. That's just the way it's going to work. Do you want Republicans that are corrupt and don't do the work? Or do you want Democrats that believe in this? It's really simple. It's really simple. I want you to see this. Folks, the 2025 project is underway. It's happening. It's happening not just to us. They're doing it to their own. They just held, every year the parties come up with a platform. Well, normally Republicans didn't bother to one year, but hey. And the way it's done is they hold their large conference and they have committees. They have their delegates show up. And they have committees and they talk about what they want to put in the platform and they vote on it and they create their platform. Yeah, not under the 2025 project. In the 2025 project, you shut your mouth and you do as you're told. This is one of the attendees. We have the Republican platform now.
Take me inside. There were no phones. Was there any debate? How unusual was this year?
It's never happened before. Like I said, I've done this several times. There was no committees. We always had subcommittees where we can go in and work on a section of the platform. We can propose amendments.
This is the GOP that Laura Trump now runs.
Debate them, add them, always happens. I've done it many times. And then it would usually take today, and then tomorrow we would come back and meet as a complete platform, and sometimes there'd be more amendments. They didn't allow any amendments. They didn't allow any discussion. They rolled us. That's what they did. We only spent thousands of dollars to be here, and everything they told us they were going to do isn't what happened. None of it happened. I've never seen this happen before. I don't understand why they did it, and I'm extremely disappointed that we do not have any pro-life language. There are good things in this platform. There are a lot of things in there that I support and that I would want, but I didn't vote for this because we've never had a platform. I've been coming to these conventions since 1992, and this is the first time we don't have a pro-life platform. The platform simply says that.
Yeah, lady, there's a reason you don't have a pro-life platform, and we're going to get into that right now. We have the platform, and we're going to go through it point by point. I want you to forgive me. I'm going to keep this up here for a while. There's a reason your platform doesn't reflect your people, even though I don't agree with your beliefs. You would think your party would represent your beliefs, but hell no, they are running from abortion as fast as they can. Let's do this. 20-point platform. Never seen a platform that looked or read like this before. This is a propaganda document. That's all it is. It's not really a platform. You can tell by point number 1, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Okay, let's address that. First of all, seal the border. No, you're not. No, you're not. We do billions of dollars of trade across, and they're talking about the southern border, of course, not the Canadian border. We do billions of dollars in trade at that border. I have shown you pictures of that traffic, those 18-wheelers coming across the border. You're not going to do that. You're not going to seal the border, and that is where your drug trafficking is. We've talked about this dozens of times. That's where your human trafficking is. None of this is conducted in any, what's the word I'm looking for? It is an infinitesimally small fraction of the human trafficking and drug trafficking that occurs by walking through the frickin' desert. That's not how it's done. They pack it inside 18-wheelers. That's why Joe Biden's border bill had technology to scan trucks, rolling scanners, so that the trucks could be scanned as they went through. Backscatter, we've talked about the backscatter imaging so that we could see what's in the walls of trucks. That is how it's done. It is not done out on the borders. This idiotic, everything about what the Republicans have said is idiotic. And stop the migrant invasion. The second part, stop the migrant invasion. No, that is Vladimir Putin's militarized immigration talking points. Yeah, Scott, I appreciate you bringing it up. But the Bush administration had tried to rewrite all history over Katrina. Greg Abbott just wasn't even here. But yeah, no, folks, ask our European audience. We have people here from Norway, from Denmark. We have people here, from the Netherlands. We have people from Finland, from Italy, from Africa. Ask them what's being said. It's the exact same thing. This is a global right-wing push that comes out of Putin and the FSB. It is militarized immigration. I promise you, we are going to get a caravan soon. Soon. They've done it everywhere. They ask our Italian friends. They here, we've got Contessa Hood, Finland here. Ask her about the caravans that showed up at the Finnish border. How did Syrians and North Africans end up on the border of Russia and Finland? The same way the caravans end up at our southern border. The Russians did it. Ask her about it. She's here. Talk to her. You don't have to take my word for it. It is a militarized weapon, is what they're doing with immigration. And no, they're not going to seal the border. That would devastate our economy overnight. Okay, point number 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Camps. They're talking about camps. You're talking about estimates as high as 20 million people they are going to deport. And they're telling you, I'm not telling you that. They are telling you that. They're going to set up camps. And they're telling you out of their own mouths. And they're horrible MAGA voters, 100% want that tragedy. You know what it will be like. You know how violent it will be. You know how awful it will be. You have studied history. You understand. They want that. They know it and they want it. They're telling you they have put it in their platform. The Heritage Foundation is a 501c, therefore, in direct violation of their tax-exempt status, it is absolutely prohibits direct or indirect involvement in advocating for or against anything related to politics. Look it up. Peter Campbell, you are spot on, and Trump's name appears over 300 times in the 2025 project. Agenda 47 is literally the 2025 project, just plagiarized. That's it. Their campaign agenda is literally the 2025 project, just plagiarized. Point number 3, end inflation and make America affordable again. Okay, great. Absolutely great. Except for the fact that, Joe Biden is already doing that. Joe Biden is already doing that. This is the G7 and their inflation. We are the thick blue line. Yeah, we're leading the world. I'm sorry, our European audience, but we are. We're doing well. We're doing really well here. We had a big spike of inflation because our economy took off first. Supply and demand. There wasn't supply because COVID. So prices skyrocketed. Then we had price gouging here more than other, we don't have the regulation. Republicans absolutely just nod to corporations and allow them to gouge us. So our inflation took off more than yours did. But since Joe Biden's been on the case, they've been working on it. We have the best inflation rates in the world. But the GOP is going to try to claim credit for that. Just like Greg Abbott out there trying to claim credit for chips. That's what this part of that's what this part of the platform is about. Number 3, end inflation and make America affordable. They're going to claim credit. Just like they tried to blame Biden when they put Trump put Title 42 in place. Trump did that. And we had a flood of immigration due to Title 42. They want to turn around and blame Biden for that. They want to take credit for all of his work on inflation. So they put it in their platform and they're going to say, we did that, when they didn't do shit. They opposed everything, including Biden's legislation to help bring inflation under control. They did nothing but criticize it and vote against it. Number 5, stop outsourcing and turn the United States into a manufacturing superpower. I'm sorry, folks. I don't know about you, but how disingenuous is this? The outsourcing occurred starting with Reagan. It's every Republican administration. They're the ones that cotton to the corporations. It's the Democrats that stand up for American workers, and they're going to sit there and try to tell you that they can stop outsourcing. Oh, give me a break. What a load of crap. Okay, number 6, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Folks, when they wrote their tax bill, when they had the power, they wrote a tax bill where they blanket cut taxes to the point where the government was amassing the most debt it's ever amassed in history. Trillions of dollars in debt. But you know whose taxes went back up? The workers. They wrote it so that every 2 years, you and me, the poor folks out there, the poors, our taxes went up. You know who didn't? Johnny Got Rocks, the billionaire frat boy club. Their taxes were permanent. Tax cuts were permanent. Now they're trying to tell you that they're going to cut your taxes? Do you believe them? And this whole no tax on tips thing, that's a gimmick. They're trying to get young people. That's it. It's a gimmick. Young people don't report their tips. They don't get taxed, but it's a gimmick. And you're going to get some kid somewhere that's going to fall for it. But it really is. It's a gimmick. And I don't see it happening. They never look out. Since when has the Republicans ever had any inkling to look out for the worker? Never. 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedom, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. Okay, well, we've seen that. We've seen what they do there. They're all freedom of speech until you actually use it. And then Trump tries to tell the military to shoot you because he doesn't agree with what you're saying. He doesn't agree with your protest. He doesn't agree with you using your freedom of speech. They tell the military to shoot you. And we had to have Mark Milley say, no, sir, that's a crime. We're not doing that. But after the 2025 project, they absolutely can. Our fundamental freedoms, my God. Freedom of religion. No, that's not what they're doing. They're not, because freedom of religion means freedom from religion. They are cramming religion into every aspect of your government as fast as they possibly can. Jesus Christ, in Oklahoma, they've already started teaching the Bible in public schools. Not as a historical document. No. We're having Sunday school in school. You taxpayer-funded schools. Yeah, no, they don't want freedom of religion. They want freedom to force religion on you. Their choice of religion. Number 8 is idiotic. Prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build a great Iron Dome defense shield over our entire country. Okay, that's idiotic, folks. That's just idiotic. That, first of all, they tell you exactly what they're going to do. They're going to surrender to Putin. They're going to surrender Ukraine to Putin. That, my friends, will cause World War III. They're going to let Putin roll through Europe. They're telling you up front. They're telling you in their own platform. Number 8, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe. What they mean by restore peace in Europe is surrender Ukraine, cut off all funding to Ukraine, cut off all pressure on Russia, and cut Putin loose. And then this whole idea, a great Iron Dome all over America. Folks, Israel is the size of a city. It is. It's not a big country. Look up the square mileage of Israel. It's the same as a lot of cities, of our major cities. They have an Iron Dome. That's where they stole that from. Because, yeah, you can protect a city. You cannot create a system that creates what they call an Iron Dome. Do you understand how much that would cost to even try? The infrastructure it would involve. We can't get them to help the flooding in Houston, but they want to do this unnecessarily stupid thing. They're telling you to your face how stupid they are. Number 9, in the weaponization of government against the American people. That means they're going to let any Republican commit any crime that they want to commit, and they're going to gut the DOJ. That's what that means. Number 9, in the weaponization of government against the American people. That means your January 6th insurrectionist coup, folks that attacked police officers, shit and pissed on our Capitol, broke windows, just stole. All of that is going to be legal for Republicans. Now, if you're a Democrat, not so much. They're already telling you this whole immunity thing, they're telling you doesn't apply to Joe Biden. J.D. Vance, you have a couple senators who've already come out and said, no, not for Democrats, just Republicans. And folks, they wrote this down and put this out. This is not me. This is saying, oh, I think they're going to do this. This is them. Number 10, the migrant crime epidemic. Going back to the weaponized immigration. Demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. Camps. They mean camps. That's what they mean. Camps. 100%. You're going to have Auschwitz-style camps right here in the United States of America. Are you trying to tell me the say no to drugs thing didn't work? Folks, there will always be drug traffic. Always. Prohibition didn't work for alcohol. Our war on drugs does not work for drugs. There will always be drug traffic. We need to decriminalize it, start treating it like a public health issue. Stop. Do the opposite of what the Democrats are talking about doing here. They're talking about more militarization, more war on drugs. They're talking about camps, mass deportations. They're telling you to your face. 11, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. Camps. They mean camps. That's what they mean. They don't like cities, and they damn sure don't do infrastructure. They don't do infrastructure. During the Trump administration, the infrastructure bill was always coming in 2 weeks, and 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 2 weeks. They own the House. They own the Senate. They own the White House. They could have done an infrastructure bill anytime they wanted. They don't do that. When they talk about cleaning up their cities, they mean getting rid of brown people. That's what they mean. That's what they're telling you to your face. They're telling you. Alto Eager, the ballistics the Iron Dome can take down would have to be fired from inside the U.S. and doesn't work on freaking ICBMs. Exactly. It's just idiotic. It's idiotic. Completely idiotic. The range of the weapons that an Iron Dome does effectively work against is hundreds of kilometers. How does that work in a country that is, 3,000 by 1,500, 2,000? How does that work? They're idiots. They're just idiots, and their voters are idiots. That's why they can say things like this. Jeanette Dahl, thank you from our European audience. Thank you for the support, Jeanette. I really appreciate you. You are absolutely right about Putin. He is trying in every way to create discord here in Europe. Unfortunately, there are a few countries that are following his example. Thank God, France. Oh, by the way, pat myself on the back. Did I call it in France or did I call it in France? People are saying no to the authoritarianism. Yay, pat myself on the back. I told you. I'm rarely wrong, folks. Number 12. We're almost done, folks. Hang in there. Strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the biggest and most powerful in the world. My God, we spend more than the next 26 nations combined, and 25 of them are allies. These people are nuts. They're nuts. Number 13, keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. You know how you keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency? Stability. That's why it is the world's reserve currency. It isn't because it's particularly pretty to look at. No. So what do the Republicans do? They threaten that stability 2 to 3 times a year by refusing to pay our bills. They blackmail us 2 to 3 times a year. Give us something great for our billionaire frat boy donors that send us all over the world so I can eat Wagyu beef and drink Barolo wine, or I'm going to default on our debts. You've heard that song before. It is only the Republicans and only the Republicans that threaten the stability of our dollar. That's it. This is a joke. This is a joke for them to say that. All right, number 14. Fight and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. That is a bald-faced lie. You have heard them say themselves, they have to make cuts to Social Security. It's untenable. We have to raise the. You have heard it out of their own damn mouths. This is not an announcement that policy changed. This is just a lie. They are going to cut your Social Security. They're going to gut your Medicare. They have told you themselves. All right, number 15, cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations. Okay, there is no real vehicle mandate. There really is no electric vehicle mandate. It is a target. And the Biden administration said, look, we're going to stop burning, global warming, folks, getting a little hot around here. So the federal government is leading the way. It is leadership. They're saying, for our light vehicles, we are going to try to replace them with electric vehicles where we can. That's hybrids and plug-in electric. The Republicans are saying no. Just like they say no to wind energy, just like they say no to solar. They try to roll back rebates on solar panels. They try to do everything they can to hold us back. The Democrats are the ones that move forward. Always. We're always the ones that are doing the work that needs to be done. Remember James Inhofe and his snowball? He doesn't believe in global warming because he's holding a snowball on the floor of the Senate? Yeah, he's dead. He's dead. He just died. And I tell you what needs to die is the Republican way of looking at things and doing things, and their corruption and their pandering to their donors. That's what needs to die. James Inhofe suffered from long COVID. Get that. All right. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. We're not going to do this again. Critical race theory isn't taught in your public schools. Those are university level courses, law school courses that are electives. There are no critical race theory courses anywhere. This is made up crap. We talked about the Manhattan Project. We talked about Christopher Rufo and the appeal to bigotry. That's all this is another appeal to the racists and the bigots. That's it. And it's written into their platform. Keep men out of women's sports. Again, rarest unicorn on the face of the planet is a transgender man who wants to compete in sport. A transgender woman who used to be a man does not want to be in a locker room. They do not, as young people, they do not. And every organization out there regulates against any kind of advantage. This is the rarest of unicorn situations. Meanwhile, Houston floods every hurricane. That is a real problem. They're really trying to gut your schools. That is a real problem. They're really trying to force your schools to pay wealthy people tax credits. No kidding. That's what a voucher is. It's a tax credit for a wealthy person. Because if you could afford private school for your kid, you would have your kid in private school. A voucher is not going to change that. It is not enough money. Schools are actually fairly damn efficient with your money. So yeah, it's a tax credit that you're not going to get to use, but Johnny Got Rocks is. That's what they're talking about. More goodies for their billionaire frat boy donors. Deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Ooh, yeah, make that patriotic again. Tell me that doesn't sound like the 2025 project to you. Now, I didn't agree with these protesters. I didn't agree with these people blocking highways. I didn't agree with any of them. I really didn't. And I think that if they are foreigners, that you should absolutely, if you commit crimes, you do to foreigners what you do to foreigners that are caught committing crimes, you deport them. That already happens. They're talking about Americans. They're talking about people with citizenship. They're talking about people with a right to be here. They don't like what you say. They're going to ship you off to another country. Again, camps. Camps. Thank you for support, Lou. I appreciate you. They're telling you to your face. Nice. Good to see it. Good to see it. I haven't seen that one yet. Thanks for pointing it out. If you can, Brendan, if you can post a link to that, that'd be great. I want to read about that. Russian bot farm on X was dismantled by the Justice Department. Probably why my feed's been so quiet lately. Don't get the disgusting, insulting, stupid people in my feed as much anymore. All right. Number 19. We're almost done. Only 2 left. Number 19. Secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. Prove to me your citizenship. Oh, wait. Prove to me your citizenship. Had to think about it, didn't you? Folks, different, your birth certificate is basically it. You know how few people actually have at the ready to go, a copy of their birth certificate? Not only are you going to have to take a license, which excludes poor people, because who's more likely to not have their license? Remember, elections are just a few percentage points. Now they're talking about you're going to have your birth certificate. Folks, elections are decided by just a few percentage points. If they can just peel off a few people that aren't likely to vote for them, they know they can win. They know they can win. So, my man ET does a notification every show to remind people, check your documentation. Check your documentation. ET, keep your powder dry. I got this one, man. Check your documentation ahead of time. Make sure that if you're due, they're still processing those real IDs. Make sure that if you're due to update, it may not be when your license expires. Make sure your documentation is up to date now for November. Don't wait. Don't wait, because that's what they're hoping for, is that you procrastinate and you wait. They're telling you to your face, they're going to make it really freaking hard to vote, as hard as possible to vote. You got to get your ducks in a row now. All right, number 20, last one. We're done. Unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. First of all, forgive this expression, but fuck uniting with you. MAGA pieces of crap. And second of all, every time you have control of the government, you destroy our economy. Every damn time. For one reason or another, we Democrats always have to start our administrations with some sort of rescue plan because the Republicans dirt in our economy. Every time. I'm riding with Biden, baby. 100%. I am riding with Biden. I'm not doing this shit anymore. We're going to destroy the Republican Party. We are going to destroy the Republican Party and make room for something else to come up in its place because they are nothing but corrupt and disgusting human beings that are more than willing to destroy everything that was handed to us, everything that was given to us, our education system, our democracy, everything. They're willing to destroy it all just to do the bidding of a handful of billionaires. Screw them. Screw that. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. So, foreign policy. This happened. And of course, right-wingers don't know anything, are doing a lot of talking and don't understand. Modi bear hugs Putin in Moscow, marking deep ties between Russia and India. They're missing the big story here for the, missing the forest for the trees. First of all, Modi bear hugs everybody. That's what he does. That's his signature move, is he's a hugger. So no, this isn't special for Putin. This isn't surprising. For the dumbass MAGA people that might trip over this because I put a really cute girl in a bikini on the thumbnail, just so you know, this India is in a running. What's the right word for it? China and India are in a massive competition with each other. They are. We are not China or India's greatest competition. We're their greatest customer. We're not geopolitical rivals like they try to play us out to be. India and China are geopolitical rivals. India has everything China does. Technology. It has a massive workforce and a government that really doesn't give a crap if you pollute in their country. They also have a leg up. They speak English fluently, which right now, I mean, that still means something. But they also speak Russian. They do. And China has been sucking up to Russia and getting a distinct advantage. They have been getting a distinct advantage. Let me see if I can find that. Somebody mentioned BRICS. We've talked about BRICS before. BRICS it's not an alliance. India and China are in deep competition with each other. No, BRICS is not an alliance. It's nothing for us to worry about. It's a bit of a joke. The reason Modi is in Russia is because China has been buying massive amounts of Russian oil dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. India has been in second place on that. And while the rest of the world, Europe, and while America is pumping out oil to keep the market stable, we are the largest oil exporter in the world right now, the United States of America, to keep those markets stable. China and India have both been buying from Russia, helping them circumvent those sanctions that the rest of the world has been putting on Russia for being an aggressive state. And what's one of the things that's being missed in this that really is actually kind of a threat is where this meeting took place. This, folks, is a place I'm willing to bet you've never heard of. This is Novo. It's in the suburbs of Russia. This arguably is what got Alexei Navalny killed. He was already in prison, but his organization put out a film about this place. This is not the Russian White House. This is Putin's house. This is Putin's house. Technically, it is owned by this guy, Alexander Ponomarenko. He is a Russian oligarch. He is one of Putin's mafia henchmen. This, let me pull it back up for you again. Is the largest public bribe ever paid. Novo, which is something you never really heard about because we don't go there. This is where Putin likes to host people. This is his residence. And when I say his residence, I don't mean like the White House. The White House is our house. The Russian version of that is the Kremlin. That's in the center of Moscow. This isn't even like Camp David. No. This is Putin's private residence. He owns this. And it is lavish. It's estimated to have cost $1.5 billion. It has massive grounds. I invite you to Google it and take a look. It has massive gardens. It is the world's largest open bribe ever paid. And it is likely what got Alexei Navalny killed because he leaked a video about this place. We don't go there. This is where Putin likes to conduct business. We will not acknowledge it because it is criminally ill-gotten gains. Lou Flores says, and did y'all know the regular news media has CEOs that are big Trump donors? Yeah, that is definitely something that we are going to cover here on the tail of the news media, letting Trump hide for 10 days, not ask a single question where he is or what he's doing, but attack President Biden on Trump's behalf. Why would they do that? Because they're all of their billionaire owners are in the tank for Trump. But yeah, Novo, one, it's a shithole. It is. It really is. It is lavish as hell, but typically Russian. Google it. It really is beautiful to look at. But they just had to gut it. Not because it's an old, you can see that house is not old. It's not old. But they've already had to gut it because it was so shabbily built. They poured concrete for the walls. Then they built false walls to cover the concrete and then put that traditional French, you've seen the way the Kremlin, or pardon me, French, I said French. I meant to say Russian, that typical Russian, over the top that you see in the Kremlin and all that nonsense. Everything's gold and all that other stuff. They built false walls and then they just vomited that all over the inside of it. In typical Russian fashion, they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to build it. That place is oozing mold, literally. The walls, the concrete walls, with the false walls built all over the inside of it, developed massive amounts of mold, and the place started to reek, just absolutely disgustingly reek of mold. The ceiling, when they actually found it, was a portion of the ceiling collapsed. This is not an old building, folks. They paid $1.5 billion in bribes. The way they did it was these oligarchs would buy companies. Then the Russian government would come in. They threw gigantic tarps over everything they were building so that the news media in Russia couldn't see it, because Alexei Navalny, this was one of the things he was railing against, was they were stealing funds from other government projects to build this place. And then he demanded his oligarchs bend the knee and pay him bribes. Abramovich was one of them. Ponomarenko is technically the owner on paper, because like I said, Vladimir Putin is the wealthiest man on the planet, but yet he owns nothing. But yeah, this place was oozing slimy mold. They had to gut it, scrub it out, and rebuild it all. And we know this because the workers are talking about it and what a shabby job they did rebuilding it. This is Russia, folks. This is Putin. This is what he is. Just open bribes. And what's the big story from our news media? Do they tell you where it happened, why that's an odd thing? B. Whalen says, why don't Rips talk about Trump's defense spending bill with with the wall money? Exactly. But yeah, this is what Trump wants to be. This is what Trump wants to be. If he gets into office, he is going to gut all of our government institutions. You've seen them. They've had charities shut down because they're stealing from charities. And you can see the corporate media is not going to hold them to account for anything. They just let Trump sit when he's supposed to be out campaigning. They let him sit in one of his golf courses and golf for 10 days, and nobody said a word. Do you know what they would say if Joe Biden just stopped for 10 days? Could you imagine? Yeah, it's 17,000 square feet. You should see the gardens. They're just, it's like a city park worth of gardens in this house. It is the world's largest open bribe. And India just blessed it. They just blessed it. You know, you ask our European friends. They don't know what this place is. I mean, did you know what Novogaryovo was? Had you ever even heard of it? It's been Putin's primary residence. It's in the suburbs of Moscow. It's due east. The Kremlin is dead center in Moscow. This is due west. Due west. In the suburbs of Moscow. This is his primary residence. Have you ever even heard of it before? Everybody in the world has heard of the White House. Dems have been flying low, and after all the bad, Dems are stepping up for Biden. Yes. Gloves are off with Dems. It took a long time, but better late than never. Speaker's words are coming back at him. Amen. You know, they just put this out about not cutting Social Security. Mike Johnson just went to a microphone and said, yeah, we're absolutely going to cut Social Security. Told you to your face. Just told you to your face. The blog says, why are some like the Young Turks saying the media wants Biden out to help beat Trump? No, it doesn't work that way. The Young Turks, I despise. I do not like them. I do not follow them. They are a self-serving lip service that always undercut They fomented the Bernie Bros thing. They're fomenting the Biden needs to drop out thing. They are horrible human beings. Do not follow the Young Turks. Do not support them at all. Well, look, folks, this is what I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope the internet hasn't been too bad. We really are running at about half speed here. Forgive if any of the audio has cracked up or the video has stalled back and forth. It's just what we're dealing with from Hurricane Beryl right now, trying to get it back. Yes, Sink is a snake. He is. Sink Uyghur is a snake. The Young Turks are frickin' awful. They are awful. So yeah, love you folks. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you for being here. Went a bit long, so we're not going to do a roundtable today. We're well over an hour. Thank you for all the support, Peter Campbell. Thank you for his courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite the fear. Absolutely. People are like, Paul, why were you just so stuck on Biden? Why didn't you even entertain all this nonsense? Because I have a spine. I don't shrink to every ill wind that comes my way. I know it's good for the country, and I fight for it. I love you, folks. Enjoy some Texas cities at night. And again, thank you for all the support. You keep the lights on around here.